Weiss matching up like with the really, really tough district in the first round of playoffs with Mansfield. Lake Ridge knocks off Weiss 68-44. Vista Ridge knocks off Bowie 51-37. Kiana Wormley 17 points, 11 rebounds in that one. Pflugerville knocks off Travis 64-25. Avery Berry 19 points. Hendrickson knocks off Navarro 89-24. Hendrickson, one of the better girls teams in the area. Both their girls and guys teams are going to make the playoffs, or made the playoffs. Nia Waters, Elia Carter, 18 points apiece in that one. Round Rock over Westlake 43-35. 26 wins on the season for Round Rock. Big upset there. They knock off Westlake, their first playoff win since the last time they had 26 wins, which was in 1988. I was not even alive yet. No one wasn't even thought about yet. And last one I have for you, Lake Travis over Stony Point. Mia Galbraith, the buzzer beater, the Oklahoma State commit. They knock off Stony Point 44-42. So as Cameron works to get our first guest on, like I said, Coach Salazar coming on the show, going to chop it up with the boys about his season. Nolan, you've been to a couple basketball games this year. You've been able to kind of follow Buda Johnson as they've had some success this year. Your thoughts on kind of the basketball season so far?
I mean, for Buda Johnson and Westlake to kind of create this rivalry over this year, to go 1-1 in their series is pretty remarkable for Buda Johnson being in there so early in their varsity careers. I think that's just great for the area to have that kind of rivalry coming up so young. For the other team, Stony Point being state ranked is huge. I mean, the talent is becoming noticed, and it's being on watch now in the ATX for basketball.
Cameron, you wanted to talk girls basketball, but just kind of your thoughts on what we've seen play out on the basketball scape so far this year, guys and girls. Nolan talked about Buda Johnson, what they've done to kind of open some people's eyes, but your thoughts on basketball so far?
Yeah, first off, big congrats to Marble Falls. Big win this week, knocking over China Springs, rather. They'll play Caldwell this week. I know you guys went down with the scores, but exciting to be in the playoffs because basketball is my favorite sport. I know football gets the most praise in Texas, but for me personally, I love high school basketball just as much as I like high school football. And I know boys kicks up next week, but girls have been an exciting season to watch, especially that district with Pflugerville and Hendrickson and Georgetown and Eastview. All four teams won their games Monday and Tuesday, including Eastview upsetting McCallum, which went 16-0 in district play. I believe that's a first for that program under Coach Keene. Did a great job in her second season. Went on a 13-game win streak, won 27 games. And Eastview won 29-25 at McCallum to go to the second round. I think they play Lake Creek. Hendrickson and Pflugerville, just two dominant powerhouse programs this season. They're going to be fun to watch, see how far they go. And Georgetown, too, no slacker there. And how about Cedar Park after just great back-to-back years falling in the first round? So kind of like when the Warriors, lost in the play-in game, right? Was that 2 years ago? Kind of the same thing for Cedar Park, right? They've been the team to beat in the Austin area in a first-round exit, which, considering all they lost after last season's state title run, not surprising, but still it's weird not seeing Cedar Park make it to the regional round of the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's why it's so interesting to see these programs, especially on the football side of things, but even in volleyball, you talk about Dripping Springs and in baseball and basketball, just at the high school level to sustain success like that, because it's not like college or pros where you're drafting players every year or you're recruiting players every year. At least you're not supposed to be. But so that's why we see like it's so crazy, Cameron, when teams are able to have good years and make the playoffs and it be the type of thing where it's like, oh, I can't believe they didn't make the playoffs this year. But Cameron, Austin High, I mentioned their win over Cedar Ridge. Austin High being now the number one team in the state because of what happened to Duncanville.
How about
that? How crazy is that? And you mentioned Jade Clack, the sisters going to SMU, just that Austin High program.
Yeah, excited to see them in person. Hopefully I can get out there to watch them play either this weekend or beginning of next week once they hit what's after regionals. Regional finals?
Yeah, I think regional finals.
Something like that, yeah. How fun would it be if we can get Austin High to the state championship, at least the Final Four?
Yeah, I mean, we used to always think that would be Cedar Park. Like that's the girls basketball team that we would get. But this year it's Austin High. So really awesome there. Yeah, so I mean, going back, Nolan, just talking about we mentioned those girls nominated for Volleyball Player of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
You went to some volleyball games, got to see the Dessous sisters play. Their brother playing for Texas, a big time difference maker for the Texas Longhorns. But for your alma mater, the Dessous sisters, and then what you saw on the volleyball side of things this year.
I mean, yeah, at Hayes, those Dessous sisters are really dominant. They have really good middle blockers, I think. Or what do you? Are they middle blockers in the middle?
Lucia Lange is the one with the really curly hair.
Yeah, she's really good. I think Hayes has a lot of potential coming up through the young kids. So I think it'll be exciting to see them. I mean, Westwood with Lola being nominated, they were great this year. Lola's a great leader. I filmed many of their games last season, and they just feed off of her, just her energy. If she's down, they're down. If she's up, they're level headed. She keeps everybody level, and I think she's going to be a great leader going to Fordham next year.
We talked about last week Alex Kriz and then Trinity Woods, the middle blocker and the outside hitter for Westwood. That's another program that they're able to have to sustain really, really high-level success on the volleyball program there. And then Buda Johnson, Mackenzie Beal, and then that team able to make the playoffs this year. We went to a Buda Johnson game together.
Yeah, Buda Johnson's – I mean, they still have some years left in them with I think Tello's a senior next year.
Tello's a senior now. She's going to Texas State.
Going to Texas State.
But the libero they have now, the Zanaya Hoskins girl.
Yes. Butler, the Butler girl. She was a freshman this year.
Yep.
She was really good. She had a lot of really good games, and I think she has a lot of potential to have some good years coming forward.
Yeah, and then we got to go to the event to celebrate Dripping Springs State Championship run to kind of close out volleyball. How awesome is that, and how cool is that? We got to talk to Coach Kane, a really awesome guy.
I mean, that was fun. Just to watch that community really support those girls was awesome. To have all those people out in one area watching the rerun, just to have the team there to feel that energy again and interview those girls and get the thoughts of those girls, what they were thinking in the moment of winning that state championship and getting the gold. And then we got to talk to Coach Kane, which, I mean, he's a great talker. He could talk for years about volleyball, and he's an amazing guy. So it was good to talk to him.
Another amazing coach, means a lot to his community, just like Coach Kane and that volleyball program does. That Dripping Springs community is our very own, right down the street, Coach Salazar. Coach, thanks for calling in the show.
Hey guys, good to hear from you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, yes sir, Coach. I just wanted to ask you, really quick. You know how you tune in and you listen to these like talking heads talk about coaches, and they talk about the coaching tree, like so-and-so's from the Bill Belichick coaching tree or the Nick Saban coaching tree. How would you describe your coaching tree that you come from?
Well, I would say I'm kind of a conglomeration, a mixture of a bunch of bag of goodies of Hall of Fame coaches I've been fortunate to be around. Obviously, a lot of my head coaching, the way I believe and the way I'm wired when it comes to running this program is highly influenced by, obviously, the one and only Todd Dodge. And
yes,
he's taught me in our time together. And as a friend, as a mentor, I could not be more blessed and honored to have him, obviously, in my life and to give me these opportunities to work at Westlake High School and to teach me, all the tricks of the trade that he's learned through all his years of experience. And such an incredible and valuable, obviously, relationship that I cherish every single day. And then I think you would go to next would be to my college coach, Coach Pete Fredenberg, another Hall of Fame coach who's won multiple national championships, 20-something conference championships. I mean, just guys that obviously are loaded down with a wealth of knowledge in dealing with football teams and programs. And I think each one of them is from the, kind of different sides of the ball. Todd being an offensive guy and obviously Coach Fredenberg being a defensive guy. So hopefully, I feel like that's kind of made me a well-rounded, head coach to kind of see both sides of the coin, to see the importance, obviously, of offense and defense. And then obviously I've understood the special teams game for a while now, the importance of that and the impact of our program that has. So those two guys for sure, along the way I've been fortunate to have some coaches that have coached, for me, that we got some pretty guys, some big name schools that have some guys that have coached for me in some different places. I got Lee Munn is DC at South Lake, and Chase Parker is another guy coached for me. I don't know if it's public knowledge or not, but he'll be the DC at the biggest school in DFW here in about the next week or two. And got a guy that's coached in college. That's the DC at Trinity, Euless Trinity. And so, I mean, you just kind of, that's just the tip of the iceberg, a bunch of guys that have come through. But the coaching world's a big fraternity of people that you care about and you love, and you try to obviously empower them with opportunities. And I've learned to share as much knowledge as I can with those around me, because your football team's only as good as what they know and not what you know. And so I think the same can be said with coaching.
Hey, Coach, now with your first season in the books, I'm sure you've had a little time to, maybe reflect on it. But how did your expectation of, being a head coach compare to the reality of it after your first season at Westlake?
No, it was, it was, I don't know. Every single week is a challenge, all the challenges that come with being the head coach. But obviously, I enjoyed every single minute of it. I enjoyed I'm a competitor at heart. So obviously, I think my competitive fire maybe found another step or another level I didn't really know I had before, knowing that, like I said, it's a complete team that you must have prepared to go out and win each and every week. It's not just defense. It's the offense. It's the special teams. It's the coaching staff. It's a community of parents believing and sharing the same message you have of understanding that every single week we're going to try our very best, and we know our opponent's going to give us their best, and we better be ready. And the standard at Westlake obviously is very, very high, and but that's where we want it to be. It's where our kids want it. It's where our coaches want it. So we want to be playing for something that means something, and fortunately for us at Westlake, we're at that place right now.
Westlake head coach Tony Salazar, Flex ATX Wednesday night. Coach, we had Coach Drew Sanders over at Vandegrift. We had him on the show yesterday. I feel like, and me and you have talked about the recruiting side of this, how Austin is kind of slept on and really starting to make a name for itself on the recruiting side of things, and people are, and those recruiters are starting to maybe take a turn from the DFW and head to the 512 and take a look at our guys. But I feel like the next place that people need to realize is that we have really, really good head coaches here in the area. Yourself, you mentioned Todd Dodge being before you, Coach Salazar, Coach Carter over at Lake Travis. What can you say just about the company that you keep here in the 512 in terms of just the brilliant kind of coaching minds that you have around you?
Well, I think obviously anytime there's successful programs in a confined area, it only makes everybody around you better, because you better prepare a little bit harder. You better prepare a little better. You better obviously understand that every single week, there's opponents just right down the street that if you don't prepare the correct way and you don't make the plays on Friday nights, you can be staring at a loss in that column. And, obviously throughout the years, there have been several of these programs around Central Texas that have made won state championships, have made runs, obviously state championship games, have been, some of the usual names in the regional final games. And so obviously, Austin, Texas is where it's at right now. And I think it's a testament to the kids here in Central Texas and the coaches that we understand what we have here. There's quality football in all parts of the city, all around this city. Obviously, being at Westlake, we're prideful and then hoping that we can carry the torch for Austin, Texas when it comes to the level of football. And our kids at Westlake want to be the best in the city every single year. And obviously from there, they want to be the best in the state. So I think, through the years, we've had tremendous players at all these different programs that have had opportunities to go off to play college football. And obviously they're backing it up by these kids going to places. They're being productive members of their team, productive on the field, productive in the classroom, productive, off the field. And then I think it's really, opened up the world's eyes to the quality of young men and the great coaches we have here in Austin, Texas.
You just mentioned, those kids that have gone from Westlake to the NFL and D1. It's well documented, the pipeline that you have going on, Coach. But what's equally as impressive to me is the number of walk-ons that come from Westlake, and two guys in particular, Bryce Chambers and Michael Taff. And I want to get to Michael Taff here in a second, but I want to ask you about Bryce and all these kids, because there's probably a handful of players that they spurn playing time at a program to come to a program such as maybe Texas, right, and find a way to make playing time, even though they know that it's going to be an uphill battle. I'm just curious, what is it about Westlake that brings players like this? Because I imagine as a PWO, you have to have not only humility, but you got to have hunger that is rare to find in athletes this day.
That's a good question. I think I'll go back to kind of, and I'll use obviously my experiences with Mookie and Michael Taff and obviously and Bryce and the Chambers family that have been through Texas for a while now. I think what our kids at Westlake enjoy is they enjoy going and empowering another football team, another program, the concept of winning. And that may sound cliche or simple, but I really think that our kids know that they understand the formula and the work that it takes to win. And they're confident enough to be able to express those views and obviously the attributes of a winner to another football team. And I think that's what Mookie Taft brought to the University of Texas, was a guy that would not be denied. If you're gonna, we're gonna run a rep of a gasser cross from one side of the field to the other side of the field, and they're looking for who finishes first. Mookie Taft's going to try to finish first, and if you don't finish first, he's going to tell you about it. He's going to ask you, how come you didn't finish first? If you were a 5-star player and you didn't finish first, and I'm going to walk on to the University of Texas, how do you think that makes that 5-star feel? That's Mookie Taft. That's what leadership looks like, and we try to ingrain that in every single one of our kids. And I think Chambers, I think he said, an awesome quote at the end of his signing day the other day as a PWO was, he's going to try to find a role on the team, find a role on the team where he can hopefully, teach the rest of his teammates how to win, and what that looks like with his work ethic, with his obviously dedication, obviously with the execution that he does on the field. And I think that's what he wants to be. He's part of a team, that knows how to win, and a part of a team that understands obviously the many steps that it takes to be successful in college football.
Westlake head coach Salazar, Flex ATX Wednesday night. One more, Coach, before I let you go, before I ask your shout-outs. I'm curious, someone like yourself that's fortunate enough to have coached so many guys, like Cameron mentioned, that are playing at the Division I level, playing big-time football. What is during the football season, what is your viewing experience like on Saturdays? How do you set that up, knowing you have the guy playing at this time on this channel and this guy playing on probably that streaming service? What is your subscription bill like, and then how many screens do you have to have going on a Saturday?
I'll tell you, in January, I had to cancel a bunch of subscriptions. I had to do that. There's a bunch that I've been paying for throughout the year. That
you don't need Big Ten plus.
$8 charges, $15 charges. You had to go back and cancel some of those guys to make my bill a little bit lower. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun to get in on Saturday and knowing that as you look down the slate of college football games, there's a bunch of chaparrals that are playing across the country, and for the most part, obviously those guys are representing us in the right way. They're representing their families. They're representing this community. The big time leaders in their programs. I mean, go to Leo Lowen at West Point Army. The dude, I think had something like 20 tackles in the Army Navy game. I mean, he was the player of the game, and that's a kid that obviously in our program is. We've got those kids every single year. Those kids that are tough, or smart, are all in for Westlake. They're all in, for this community, the school, and so yeah. I mean, I really like to spend that time a little by myself to watch those games because I'm the only one that understands that I'm gonna flip the channel, 30 different times every time I get a second or a game's out of hand. Or some of my guys are young and they don't get into the end of the game. I might tune in towards the very end of the game when maybe they have a chance to get in the game and watch those guys play. But I couldn't be more proud of all the kids that have come through this place and that obviously represent their families and this prestigious schools they come from. I know they're proud of the kids that in our program right now that are obviously continuing that tradition for them that they set. So a lot of late Saturday nights, there's no doubt, and usually an iPad going on the backfield, watching the next opponent too to figure out how we're going to stop them or how we're going to score on them for the next week. So there's a lot of football watched in the Salazar household on Saturday nights. There's no doubt.
Coach, I have one last question for you. I'm assuming you watched the Super Bowl on Sunday, correct?
Yep. I sure did. Yes, sir.
So it featured, of course, two great Texas quarterbacks, Pat Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, who played their butts out. Mahomes winning his second Super Bowl. But it feels like Pat Mahomes is entering kind of that Brady territory of where no matter who the Chiefs are playing, you just feel like Mahomes is going to figure out a way to win it. I'm curious, either as a player or a coach, have you gone up against a quarterback like that where it feels like no matter what you do, he finds a way to win?
I had one on our team one fun time, and he wore number 6 here at Westlake. His name was Kay Klubik. So I've yet to line up against one on the other side, against the other sideline. That's obviously that's because I have belief in our kids that no matter who we're playing, and we've played the A-listers when it comes to quarterbacks in the state of Texas, We played the Quinn Ewers. We played the Jackson Arnolds. We played all the guys, the best quarterbacks in the state of Texas. And we've been fortunate to obviously come out on top on most of those games. And but I think I can't give love anywhere else besides giving love to the ones that we had here at Westlake that obviously I think showed the world this year that they're well above past their years in age. And I think Cade Klubnik was one of those in his time here at Westlake. Every single time he took the field, we all believed we were going to win the football game. And, we're looking for the next great one here at Westlake High School. We've got some talented quarterbacks coming up, some 2 returning players, the seniors that are going to play for us this year, and some young kids that obviously are going to make that room very, very competitive. So we're going to keep doing what we do, and I think obviously Pat Mahomes and those guys, that's the elite of the elite. And obviously there's no doubt that their demeanor, their confidence, and obviously their execution makes their teammates so much better. And I think in my time here at Westlake the last 10 years, I think there's no one better in the state that I saw do it than our own number 6 that wore here for a few years.
Westlake head coach Coach Salazar, great defensive coach answer to the question of like who's the best quarterback you've ever gone against. To say I always have a way to stop them. Coach, thank you for everything you do. I love listening during the season to Craig Way and Jeff Howe pick your brain once a week, and thank you for calling in. We got to ask your shout outs before we let you go.
Well, a shout out to our 23 football season. My rising seniors at Westlake High School. Those guys. They're understanding real quick that they're next. It's their turn. And, we have, about whatever it is, 6 months to get this football team ready and to be ready for August when fall camp gets here. And actually, it's July 31st, I guess, for the freshmen this year. So we're starting Texas high school football in July for the first time in my time, at least. And so, I shout out to those guys and let them know, obviously, the work they're doing right now in the off season, the weight room, it's not for the timid. It's not for the weak. There's sometimes the doldrums of being inside a enclosed room and lifting weights and hearing the sounds of weights crashing. But that's part of what makes you great in August is the hard work that goes into the weight room here in the spring. And I want my guys to know that keep keeping on because they're doing a great job and obviously we need to be prepared to play some physical football come August.
Coach Salazar, thanks again, Coach. Keep keeping on. Thank you. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it, guys. Thanks so much for the call.
Brody Bueno, when we get back, Flex Wednesday night. Flex, ATX, Wednesday night. Big shout out, big thank you to Coach Salazar for coming in, talking our weekly coach talk. I think that was pretty fun, Nolan. We got to talk to Coach Sanders last week.
Yeah, great
I think
talks.
nice change of pace.
Yes.
And now we go from Coach Salazar to the governor of Hutto, Mr. Captain America Hutto edition, Mr. Hippopotamus, Brody Bueno. Brody, thanks for calling in, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, Brody, I feel like you've been playing at Hutto High School for like 6 years. If you were to go back and just recap your time from being that freshman that everyone talked about, that made an immediate impact, to kind of finding your role on both offense and defense, to ultimately your senior season in 6A in a brand new district and signing to Air Force, how would you kind of recap your time as a Hutto Hippo?
It was fun. It was wild. I mean, so much went down with like 3 different coaches, 3 different coaching staffs, and switching districts and classifications. But I don't think I'd change a single thing about it. I mean, it was a blast. It was like a movie. So I loved every second of it.
And then your dad, like I feel like when people think about like those dads that are involved with the program, it's like a negative connotation. But for you, your dad being involved in 7-on-7 and like being at all the games, how cool was it to have your dad be a part of this journey with you? I mean, you like just him being there with you and sharing these experience and getting to go to College Station for state 7-on-7, and then him being with you when we recognized you as an all flex linebacker. What kind of role did your dad play in this experience for you?
Well, my dad was my coach all the way from Kiwi, 6 years old, Little League, to right up until middle school and high school. And I guess he continued in 7-on-7, so it was a huge part of how I grew up. And so he really molded me into the player that I am today. If he had it his way, I'd still be a quarterback like in middle school, because he always thought I would be. But I mean, he's been super supportive. He's always been there to help me out, like making my decision on where to go to college, and every step of the way he's been there. And I don't think I could have done it without him.
Brody, were you aware that today is National Hippo Day?
They said that over the announcements today at school.
Okay. How did you celebrate
it? No idea.
Just by going to school, repping your Hippo shirt?
Went to school, wore a Hutto Hippo shirt, and just enjoyed being a Hippo, I guess, is the only way I celebrated it.
There we go. Next year, it may be Brody Bueno Day. I'm not sure.
They need to show like the National Geographics of the scary parts of hippos, because those things are like genuinely the scariest animal on the planet.
Yeah, almost as
dangerous.
Almost as nasty as the Brody Bueno one-handed highlight catch this year. But my favorite Brody Bueno memory was when you got your nose broke against Vandergriff in 7-on-7 a couple years ago, and then still won. Do you remember that? And I feel like that 7-on-7 year with like you and Jay and Grayson, I feel like that was a super fun 7-on-7 season.
That was a memory, that's for sure. I wouldn't say it was my favorite memory. I mean, with a broken nose and all, but that was a good 7-on-7 season. I really enjoyed those seniors. They were a special group. That was fun.
Brody, I recently got to call a Hutto Temple basketball game up at Temple a few weeks ago and got to witness Dylan Richardson drop 30 points on the Wildcats' forehead. I know he put up 37 on Midway, I think, earlier this week, last week to close out the season. So as y'all prepare for the playoffs, have you ever played with anyone like Dylan before, and were you surprised by this glow up, or have you been seeing it coming from a mile away?
Well, it's actually pronounced Dylon.
Dylon, okay. Thank you for the correction.
Yeah, but I mean, I've known him since Little League and football before he quit to focus on basketball, and then we played each other in middle school every year, and we were always playing pickup everywhere. So I knew he was a baller. So I'm not surprised at all that he just actually hit 1,000 points this past game when he put up 37 against Midway.
Brody Bueno, Hutto linebacker, future Air Force
Falcon.
Air Force Falcon. You know, we talked about this when we were talking at Pluckers, and how you were kind of thinking about going that military branch kind of route. What was it about Air Force, and how excited are you to get there and be a part of that program?
Everything about Air Force was amazing. Like, the people were some of the best people that I've ever met, and I know they may have fudged it up a little bit for the visits and the recruit, but I mean, it felt genuine, and I loved the people. I loved Colorado, and it really came down to the after football and after I've graduated, how they said that it'll set you up for life. I mean, when you make a decision like that, you're not just choosing for the next 4 years. They really emphasized that it was about the next 40 years, and you'll come out of college with a job, and you'll be able to make $115,000 a year if that's what you want to do after you've graduated. And that's something that not many people have the opportunity to do. So
Set you up for life.
Oh yeah, no, it's a life decision. So it just seemed like the logical thing for me to do. And I love the people, so it didn't seem like a bad place to spend the next 4 years.
Well, Brody, we're super proud of you here, and we were honored to have you part of our All Flex team. And you've come a long way from being in College Station and eating our Buffalo Wild Wings leftovers. And like I said, we can't wait to see all the things you accomplish. Before I get your shout outs, I want to know, is Coach Compton really like that in terms of grilling? Is he that good of a cook, or is he just be posting?
He has never fed me his food, but I've heard that it is like gourmet.
Have you heard or just seen the Twitter pics?
I've heard. I've seen the Twitter pics, and I've heard nothing but amazing reviews from his son, from coaches who have ate with him, from players that ate with him. I mean, I'm still grilling him about not letting me come eat some of his food. I mean, I'm still waiting on the invite.
Yeah, hopefully that's part of the Brody Bueno send-off is a nice little like barbecue care package. But Brody, before we let you go, thank you again so much for coming on. Like I said, we're so proud of you and so happy to have gotten to know you and your family through your Hutto Hippo journey. And we know you're off to bigger and better things with Air Force. Before we let you go, who you shouting out to? Little bit of a wait, Brody, you there? Brody?
Hello. Yes, sir.
Is this Garen?
Yes, sir. This is Garen.
All right, Garen Duncan. We're gonna hit a quick break, Garen, and then we're gonna get you right on the other side of the break. Big shout out to Brody Bueno, who called in right before you. We lost him right before we could get his shout outs. We're gonna take a quick break. Garen Duncan, Yale wide receiver. When we come back, it's a flex. Then we already have Garen, right? Flex, ATX, Wednesday night. Zach Lucero, Nolan Hogan, Cameron Play-by-Play, Parker on the phones, if you couldn't tell. Big shout out to Brody Bueno. That's my boy for a minute, man. Scary linebacker. Crazy stuff as a tight end. He wanted to say shout out to his mom, his Aunt Terry, all the future Hippos, including his brother Briggs, who's going to be a sophomore next year. That's like the most Brody Bueno name ever. To have a brother named Briggs Bueno.
That's tough.
Speaking of tough, we have one of the nastiest receivers that 7-on-7 has ever seen.
Oh.
All the schools that went to state 7-on-7 last year are having nightmares about my man, Garen Duncan. Garen, thanks for calling in for real this time.
Yes, sir. What's up? Thanks for having me.
Hey, Garen, we're glad to be talking to you, man. It was so fun, not only just with the Flex crew, but just the guys around the horn, to be learning your name and to be saying your name. You know, we saw you in 7-on-7 when Kyle Cook unfortunately wasn't able to participate, and you were kind of that guy. You became like the go-to guy for Austin, and we saw that roll over into the season as well. But what was this kind of ride for you to becoming really one of the most dominant weapons for that Dripping Springs offense?
No, it's been a ride for sure. I think I've kind of always been that guy. Just injuries and stuff kind of been putting me back. You know, junior season, I missed the beginning of the season with a couple injuries, and so that kind of set me back. And we were rolling, so we were getting done what we needed to get done, and we didn't really need to use me like we needed to use me this year. And so this year, the opportunity just rose and it worked out for me, and I made the most of it, and you know the results kind of spoke for themselves.
Garen, as you guys made the jump up from 5A to 6A, what was the biggest difference in terms of football from that jump that you noticed from your senior season through the previous 3 years in 5A?
I think the biggest difference was the quality of competition, not like because the best teams were so much better, but there were so many. The quantity was better. There were more teams that were better. So I think 5A, we kind of caught ourselves midway through the season, kind of getting lazy, kind of rolling through some teams that we were rolling through. And 6A, we couldn't do that. We were having tough game after tough game and having to get ready right for the next week.
You played some pretty passionate, I guess, fan bases, if you want to call it that, Lake Travis and Westlake. What was the environment like? I know you had Westlake, I believe, at home. You traveled to Lake Travis. What was that like for you as a player, kind of experiencing those fan bases and, you know, maybe the hype you hear about it growing up about Westlake and Lake Travis, Battle of the Lakes, all that stuff, but to be able to experience it firsthand as a player on the field?
And the social media trolls too.
Oh, I know. The social media trolls are big. But, I mean, it was a phenomenal experience for me because growing up, I all the Westlake guys, those are all my boys. Like, I grew up playing baseball and football with them. And so to finally be able to match up with them my senior year, I mean, that was a really cool feeling. And obviously they brought the fans because it's Westlake and they always do that. And so that was just a great atmosphere to play in. And then similar experience with Lake Travis, except I think Lake Travis was even more of a rival type deal because I think the social media aspect of Lake Travis kind of went a little harder than the Westlake game did.
The LT Lake House goes crazy.
LT Lake House was going crazy. I had some mutual friends that had some things to say, and so I think we had a bit of our chip on our shoulder coming up from 5A, going to their house. They kind of expected to roll us, and we really wanted that game, and so winning that game felt really good.
Garen Duncan, Dripping Springs wide receiver, going to Yale. But you know, I feel like your recruiting was like super interesting. Like we were always kind of waiting for that shoe to drop for that huge big time Division I FBS kind of offer to come through for you, and I think you were waiting for that as well. I think you realized that you're that type of caliber player. What was the recruiting kind of journey like for you? I know I felt like you kind of wanted to see where Austin was going to end up, and then his recruiting kind of took a turn at the very end. But when you look back on your recruiting journey, ultimately ending up at Yale, what was that like for you?
It was a wild ride for sure. You know, I mean, obviously being with Austin, and I kind of always travel with him, even before both of our recruiting processes really kicked off, and going to different camps and getting to be with him. And seeing his recruiting process and his stock blow up And then obviously I had that injury junior year, so my stock went down. And so my recruiting process personally didn't pick up until really my senior year, that senior summer, when I started to go to some camps when I was performing at my full ability. And so some offers didn't start rolling in until my senior summer. And I was just kind of waiting it out, talking to Austin, seeing where he was going to go. Had some really good PWO opportunities. And was still just kind of waiting it out because there was really no rush. And I thought about following Austin where he was, which would be awesome because, I mean, I've been with him since kindergarten. So being able to go from kindergarten up to college football would be amazing. But I think I kind of wanted to go and make a name for myself and kind of do my own thing because I think I have the ability to do that, and I'm the caliber of player that can do that. And, you know, around this spring, I was kind of weighing my options, figuring out where I was going to do, and started looking into the Ivy League a little bit more. And anyone I talked to, mentors, coaches from some of those bigger D1 schools that I've built relationships with, all of them spoke really highly of Coach Reno at Yale. And I took my official visit there at the end of January, and my expectations were just completely exceeded. The family and the culture and the program that Coach Reno's built up there is really something different that I haven't seen being everywhere and seeing everything because, you know, I went through it with Austin. So I've seen pretty much all there is to see within the recruiting world and recruiting process. And it's just a really special spot up in Yale, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, as soon as we saw that social media announcement, we were all super proud of you and knew something big was coming for you. I mean, we saw that talent. Like I said, especially in 7-on-7, just kind of bursting onto the scene. There's guys hosting the midday shows here on 104.9 The Horn that raved about you all the time. We'd be remiss if we didn't ask you at least one Austin Novosad question. I feel like everyone's just all like going crazy about Austin Novosad and his rise. What's something that only you know about Austin Novosad? Like what is like a little known fact about him, or like a little quirky thing about Austin that maybe not a lot of people know? Not something that like Oregon wouldn't want him anymore, but like something funny.
No. I got you. I don't even know where to start. I got a lot because, you know, I've been with him since kindergarten. He's been my best friend. But what's something real funny? I think he talks about this sometimes, but I'm going to kind of burst his bubble a little bit. He talks about how amazing he is at cornhole. But something that he always fails to mention is that he just hasn't beaten me yet. I'm his kryptonite in cornhole. He's good, and when we team up, no one can beat us, but he won't beat me.
Cornhole.
Austin sounds like the type of dude who plays like not regulation distance. I don't know. That just seems like the kind of guy. Garen, like I said, we're super proud of you. Thanks for coming on, man. And shout out to Austin for kind of hooking us up to be able to do this. Before we let you go, who you want to shout out to?
I want to shout out my family. Shout out Austin, obviously, and then Tiger Nation.
Thanks, Garen.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Garen Duncan, Brody Bueno, Coach Tony Salazar. Great episode. I'm Zach Lucero. That's Nolan Hogan. That's Cameron Parker. We'll be back next week with even more guests. It's a flex.